One officer told me they've had around 400 cars come through the checkpoint, and I have noticed a few arrests have been made. I'm going to test out my own force abilities here. Reg, back to you.
All right, Zach, may the force be with you.
And I figure since I never get to stretch for my live shots and these guys get to stretch for the show, I join them on stage. Jackson High School and Eufaula have been matched up for several hours now. At one point, Eufaula was ahead 10-1, and Jackson High School was, oh my goodness, that's the game. A woman came home and saw someone was hidden under her bed with all of her doors open. She immediately called police and ran out of the house. The $850,000 grant will be used to build a railroad spur behind the property that will be used for hauling already finished lumber. The Geneva County Jail has been under construction for a few months now. I'm Zach Wilcox, and a look at the progress so far and the important new development is coming up. Here for the Bullweevil 100, I'm Zach Wilcox, and a look at the Wounded Warrior Retreat at Fort Rucker is coming up. A new year means new goals. I'm Zach Wilcox, and tips from local professionals on how to stick with your New Year's resolutions. Dothan Prep's new drop-off and pickup road has seen plenty of activity so far. I'm Zach Wilcox, and a look at what parents and the principal think about Carline is coming up. The Hartford Police Department is investigating yet another cart skimmer in the Wiregrass.
What's it like down there 364 days later?
Well, Devin, you and I came down here just a few days after the storm, and we saw the devastation firsthand. And I can tell you, here we are a year later, and they are looking better. People are rebuilding their homes, and a lot of the debris is gone, but I can't help but feel like it's just a little empty here in Mexico Beach. A lot of the structures along Highway 98, they're gone, leaving behind empty lots. But the people I talked to today, they're working to rebuild those lots. The sunsets on Mexico Beach are as gorgeous as ever, but as soon as you cross Highway 98 and look the other direction, you can see Hurricane Michael's lasting impact.
Honestly, at my age, I didn't think I'd be hanging vinyl siding, but I've learned a lot, and that's what I'm doing now.
Karen Gabriel and her boyfriend Chris moved to Mexico Beach from Indiana just 5 months before Hurricane Michael. They were two of just a few dozen on record that stayed during the storm, and as a matter of fact, they've stayed in Mexico Beach all year.
You know, it's almost like you're stuck in time, you know. A lot of people that come here to vacation. We live here, and every day we relive it in some way, shape, or form. I mean, we can't get away from it.
Karen ran a cleaning business before the storm, but now there aren't any houses to clean. So she's helping Chris with the contracting business, which, on the bright side, has never been better.
We're doing a house here, and we're waiting for our home to be repaired as well.
Karen and Chris's neighbor grew up in Mexico Beach and retired back to the town recently. He's also waiting for repairs to the condo that he stayed in during the storm.
I heard my commodes growl like a wild beast in a movie and spray water into the ceilings. My floor tiles danced like piano keys and holding on, and it felt like we were running over railroad tracks.
Tony is selling his condo, but he is keeping his other property in Mexico Beach because despite the destruction, he can't imagine leaving. And neither can Karen.
This is a place we fell in love with, and we're staying. We're going to help our community and do the best we can.
Well, Devin, I can't imagine coming down here just a few months before Hurricane Michael, then living through that and now coping with what is a new normal here in Mexico Beach. But Karen says, you know, the sunsets are still beautiful. It's still paradise here. It's still the most beautiful place. One of which was Mike Bryan of Southern Social in Dothan, who told me a little bit about the basil pesto flatbreads he was preparing. And while Mike was teaching me a little bit about how to cook in the kitchen, the night was really more about how to judge. Who are you yelling for? Headland Rams. You know, it gets easier every time you do it. Now, I didn't want to leave until I busted a clay. Pull. And I got it. He was happy to see that the dogs made it out alive, and he said that's what really counts. For now, I think I'm just going to sit back, relax, which I've been doing, I guess, and enjoy the rest of this massage. And while that group got to see the changes going on inside the schools, everyone else will get to see some of the ones going on outside over the next couple weeks. 35 drums. That's how many were found by the Pike County and Bullitt County Sheriff's offices at a moonshine distillery. It's just under 2 weeks until Dothan City School students will be back in class, but will the schools be ready in time? We'll take a look at how the loss of Cassidy, Emily, and Addison is continuing to affect the city of Geneva. Coming up. The Hawk Houston Youth Enrichment Center is turning 55 this year. I'm Zach Wilcox, and a look at the lasting impact it's leaving in the community is coming up. 81-year-old Joyce Ferguson was crossing this particular crossing on Monday afternoon, returning home when she was struck by a train backing up to connect with some cars behind it. And while this accident was certainly unfortunate, some of Ferguson's neighbors told me they weren't too surprised to hear something happen because they've been worried about the safety at this particular crossing for years.
But I guess it takes somebody getting killed for it to really get your attention.
Sheila Tyner has lived on Old Columbia Road for over 30 years. She's crossed the train tracks to get on Highway 370 countless times, but she's always afraid something could go wrong.
When we drive over it, we just always try to pay attention and be careful and sit there if we don't know what's going on. But I mean, sometimes people get distracted or whatever, and I mean, it's just a scary situation.
It certainly was a scary situation Monday afternoon as a woman who lives on Sheila Street, Joyce Ferguson, was struck by a train backing up to connect with some cars on the other side of the crossing. Tyner and her son think something should be done before this happens again.
This part of the area where she got killed is what they call a transfer station, and there's 3 railroad tracks side by side where they switch and interchange cars.
This is a nearby transfer station on Columbia Highway, and as you can see, from certain angles, you can't really tell how many trains are in each of the 3 tracks. It isn't until you see it from a different angle that you can tell there could be 2 or even 3 trains on those tracks, and one of them could be moving. A company called Genesee in Wyoming owns the tracks. Their media contact says they follow safety guidelines set by the Federal Railroad Administration. But signage and warning devices at public highway crossings are determined by the State Department of Transportation.
We've always known this railroad crossing was dangerous, but we didn't realize that one of our neighbors would be getting killed coming through.
Now, I talked to the head of the Early County Commission who said she's going up to Atlanta tomorrow and plans on talking to someone at the state level to see if they can get any help making this crossing a little safer. But look what I found. They've even got some rabbits here. The Florida Game and Fish brought out some rabbits for kids to hold. The football field needs a new set of bleachers after the old visitor ones were blown away during Hurricane Michael. But if they add so much as 1 seat over what was already there, they'll have to pay to bring the bathrooms up to code and add all those stalls. An eyewitness tells me he saw the driver of the stolen vehicle cut across his yard, hit several trees, go up on 2 wheels, and then continue on to James Johnson Road before authorities could get to him. There are 3 black bows in the cheerleading section for Geneva, and those cheerleaders, the cheerleading squad has not joined the team tonight, and I'm not sure that they will. And also there will be a memorial at the Junction in Geneva on Monday night. I'm going to try my first piece of watermelon for this festival, and this one looks pretty juicy. I've been eyeballing it, so in Chipley, Zach Wilcox, WTVY, your hometown news leader. Allred says a lot of times kids will walk around the front of the bus to go home where oncoming traffic can't see them. Well, school's out for the summer, so it's time for teachers to do some learning. I'll tell you about a group of coaches that was able to save the life of one of their athletes. Connor Mathis has been training since August for this flight, but his passion for perfection began when he was just 15 months old.
You get like a really good look of what the layout is of the land, and then sometimes like we went and flew around my house, so just getting to fly around and seeing Dothan from a different perspective is just fun.
When Connor Mathis heard about the shortage in commercial pilots, he immediately figured out that was what he wanted to be. But that wasn't the only thing drawing him to the cockpit.
My father, whenever I was younger, whenever I was 1 actually, he died in a plane crash, and then so I'd always like seen aviation and whatnot. I thought about aviation.
Connor's father, Randy, died in December 2001, a passenger of a private plane that crashed near the Raleigh-Durham airport. He couldn't let this tragedy keep his feet on the ground, so he's honoring his father's legacy in the air.
It's also motivation to kind of like fine-tune everything and really pay attention to like your instruments and make sure you're doing everything right.
He signed up for a new course at Providence Christian and became the first student in school history to solo.
Traffic November 556, flight solo, turning left, downwind runway 27, Edward.
A moment that was both anxious and exciting for his mom, Barbara.
Connor is a good student as far as learning and listening, so I felt confident that he had learned what he needed to learn, but it was a little nerve-wracking in anticipating his first landing after his father was killed.
Barbara was a little surprised when Connor told her he wanted to become a pilot, but after seeing how comfortable he is in the air, she can't wait to see what's ahead.
Randy would have been very proud of Connor, not only for flying today, but for the way he handles himself as a man and as a person.
Now that Connor has soloed, he'll be heading to Auburn for the professional flight training program the university has with Delta. Reg? You don't have to go too far around Dothan to find a Northview High School graduate, and now they'll have to get used to seeing a Dothan D and a wolf on the sign out front. And of course, it wouldn't be the Firecracker Festival without a little fireworks. There was an accident between a semi-truck carrying peanuts and an SUV. There were 5 people involved in the accident. Fortunately, they were all okay. And they followed him onto the Ross Clark Circle where he crossed the median and started driving on the wrong side of the road. And while the town was cheering them on, the guys got in some final practice before taking on quite an incredible opponent. But sturgeons are really peculiar creatures. I also discovered that we have the only beluga sturgeon caviar farm in the country right in our backyard. And beluga sturgeons are known for producing the best caviar, but the process of milking the fish has been at a bit of a standstill recently.
We are introducing something that we created here.
Robinson Orozco spends his days handling one of the world's oldest species of fish, the sturgeon.
This is a very old fish. In physiology, it's very interesting because it's not a bone fish, it's a chondrichthyus fish. It means that you have cartilage.
Sturgeons are 250 million years old and predominantly come from the Caspian Sea. Several variations of the fish are endangered due to the lack of fishing regulations and pollution. Now this is a sterlet sturgeon, and they come in all different shapes and sizes, but regardless of which type they are, the repopulation of them is important. Sturgeon Aqua Farms has been open for 10 years and has already sent 3 shipments of fertilized eggs back to the Caspian Sea.
Congratulations from the First Minister from Azerbaijan, saying that he never saw that, or the last time that he saw that it was almost 50 years ago.
The unfertilized eggs are known as caviar, which is another facet of Sturgeon Aqua Farms business, a facet that has gone through a tough stretch lately.
After Michael, we had a lot of fish ready to harvest the last year. But Michael came and said, no, I'm not agreeing.
Hurricane Michael wiped out tens of thousands of sturgeons, and the aqua farm itself is still recovering. Orozco said they've been able to get their count back up to around 40,000, and they've been able to adapt.
We are harvesting other different species, sterlet, sebruga, but beluga we're gonna get at the end of this year.
So things are looking up at Sturgeon Aqua Farms. The caviar they milk from the beluga can sell for as much as $200 an ounce.